Hello and good morning, everybody. This is Nigel Ambayec of KETIV Technologies. Today I'm joined by Alex Alvarez, who happens to be sitting next to me in the room. How's it going, Alex?
Pretty good.
Awesome. So you might notice that we do not have our camera set up today, so you don't see our lovely faces, but I think we'll get on okay today. So with that, as you can see on your screen here, today we're going to be going over an AVA in regards to collaboration and data management in the cloud, right? So this is kind of an extension of what we've done last week. Last week we had an AVA on the Vault Thin client. For those of you who don't know, Vault is a data management tool from Autodesk. It does have a web client attached to it, but you do have to be on the intranet, which is your internal network, to be able to access those files. Today we're going to be going over another solution for collaboration and somewhat data management. It's a little more loose in terms of the data management term in this case, but definitely a collaboration tool for people who might not necessarily be in the same place. Or people who might not necessarily be in your department, right? So if you don't want to give people access to all of your engineering data, don't want to give them access to the whole vault, you just want to give them access to certain files. Maybe they're marketing and they use some of the documentation downstream or in purchasing. Something like Fusion Team or BIM 360 Team could be a valuable tool for those people. So if you do have any questions, definitely go ahead and type those into the GoToWebinar chat panel at any time, and my good friend here, Alex, will go ahead and take care of those for me. And we'll go ahead and answer those at the end, or even, your question might actually get answered during the session. So do keep in mind you're going to be here for probably the next half hour to 45 minutes or so. Definitely hope we all enjoy the ride today. So let's go ahead and just get started. So I want to give everyone a little bit of a background on this, right? So oftentimes we have some issues, right, in which we have people who are distributed in regards to how they work, right? So our designers might be in multiple places where our stakeholders might be in another place. Maybe you're an engineering provider, or maybe you use a vendor that uses something like SolidWorks, Inventor, Fusion, CATIA. It doesn't really matter. Or you're an OEM, right? You're contacting the engineering service providers themselves. And you need to communicate some things in regards to your particular design to an external team. Traditionally, things like this have been taken care of via email, sometimes via SharePoint, an extensive set of network drives, or something like a Dropbox or Box even to be able to store these files. Each of those different tools does have a different problem in our minds, right? But none of them are anything like Fusion Team or BIM 360 Team, right? So we've got email, SharePoint, network drives, and some cloud storage traditionally here at the top of the screen. Fusion Team and BIM 360 Team make it a little bit easier, right? So these tools are built CAD aware, meaning that they understand these CAD files do have a parent-child relationship. For example, your drawings are attached, or your assemblies and your parts are attached to your drawings. Vice versa, you have external references for, say, your AutoCAD files. That connection needs to be made. Things like your presentation files need your assembly files to be able to reference to. And things like Dropbox, things like network drives don't understand that relationship, right? And also in regards to Fusion Team or BIM 360 Team itself, there is no CAD required, right? So there is a viewer in the cloud that can read hundreds of different file types, whether it's your general office file types from documentation to Excel spreadsheets or emails, to even things like native Inventor files, native SolidWorks files, native CATIA files, you name it in regards to the CAD workspaces. It can pretty much read any of that, right? It is a super powerful tool. But let's jump back really quick. I'm mentioning Fusion Team. As you saw there on that first slide, there is an F and there was a B. So Fusion Team and BIM 360 Team, right? Essentially, at this point in time, both of those tools are in their infancy, but for the most part, the tools are completely identical besides the icon. Obviously, Fusion Team has an F, BIM 360 Team has a B. The intention of that is to build these two tools moving forward as industry-specific tools, right? So Fusion Team is going to be built for primarily the manufacturing and industrial space, whereas something like BIM 360 Team is going to be built for that architecture, construction, that space as well. And so certain functionality is going to exist in one or the other based on the criteria of that particular industry. So just, want to hop back there real quick and kind of explain it. Alex, did I miss anything there?
No, you pretty much covered it.
Yep. So as of right now, the two tools are completely identical. If you like the letter F, Fusion Team. If you like the letter B, go with BIM 360 Team. I know the wording is completely, confusing sometimes, but if you, hopefully this webcast kind of sorts all that out for you. There are a lot of BIM 360 products, Team being one of them, and we're going to kind of focus on that today. So with Fusion 360 Team, right, it addresses a fundamental design and communication problems, right? So traditionally, we've had to, for large assemblies similar to the one here on the screen, what you'd have to do perhaps to be able to send that to somebody outside of your immediate, network would be to do a pack and go, try to fit that zip file on an email. How many times have we had that problem, Alex? I was looking at Alex right now. He's shaking his head. Generally, emails have a maximum attachment limit of 25 megabytes. And generally, these zip drives or zip files, not zip drives, talking about the 90s here, zip files tend to be much larger than that, right? Especially when your assemblies get into the multiple hundreds, maybe thousands of parts. Sometimes we go ahead and do those zipped files for the pack and goes, and we put them into things like Dropbox or network drives. Then we require people to either VPN into our network to get that information, or we're kind of reliant on them being able to get that information from Dropbox and drop it back in. Sometimes you download the wrong file based on the file name. That becomes a problem too. And Fusion Team kind of alleviates a lot of those issues, right? Like I said, it is CAD aware and it understands. I think that's the most important thing that we want to get from this webcast is that Fusion Team and BIM 360 are CAD aware and they understand that parent-child relationship between CAD files, similar to something like Vault does, right? So Vault understands, hey, they need this, hey, they need this. And it'll be able to grab that. We'll show that shortly when we actually jump into product demo, right? Traditionally, we see a lot of people using Fusion Team, right, to get their information to like their shop floor. Sometimes manufacturing might be in the same location, sometimes they're not, but certainly those manufacturing computers don't need full-blown seats of CAD to be able to see some of these files, right? So I've seen customers, print out PDF files onto actual sheets of paper and have those walked down to the job shop area or that shop floor to be able to give to their manufacturing. When something updates to that particular PDF file, they need to generate another one and carry that down there again. Something like Fusion Team kind of alleviates that problem and doesn't require you to be on the same network as the files originally, right? You just have to have access to a web browser or even a mobile device, right? So Fusion Team can be used on a mobile device, it can be used on a tablet, we see a lot of people using iPads, or just your general browser, right? And that's what we're going to be using today. I'm going to be using Google Chrome. You can use Windows Explorer, you can use Firefox, Opera even. It all pretty much works the same, right? We'll also show you how you can do design reviews in Fusion Team, where you can look at a model in real time. You as well as a couple of other people look at that particular model and be able to make comments on it, right? And direct red lines and things like that based on what the model is. You can spin the models around in 3D space. And these are things you don't necessarily have to get everyone in a single room to be able to open Inventor, look at these assemblies, spin the file around, and everyone talk about the same thing, right? There are things like location barriers that this does alleviate, right? So with that, let's go ahead and just jump straight into Fusion Team. So I'm going to jump out of my PowerPoint real quick. So I'm going to show Fusion Team today, BIM 360 Team, exact same process. What happens is you get what is called a hub when you get a subscription of Fusion Team. This is my Fusion Team hub for my entire team here at KETIV. We all share this one. But as you can see here in the browser, the URL is specific, right, to my team. So when you set this up, right, you can set up whatever the URL you want it to be. Essentially, it's whatever name you want it to be, .autodesk360.com. In this case, it's KETIV24.autodesk360.com. Gets me to this hub. So my hub is a centralized location of where all of my projects lie. And the cool thing about Fusion Team and BIM 360 Team is it's split up into multiple projects, right? So you can get as granular as you want. Essentially here, I have one project generally per person who's working on this, working in here, and then projects for some shared documentation. So for example, today I created this project called the date, essentially 2017-09-28. Also want to shout out, it's my sister's birthday today. So I know she's not watching this, but if she ever watches this, happy birthday. You do have the option to look at the activity. So this is all of the activity that's been happening in the entire hub over the last couple of days, pretty recent stuff. And then you have the option to be able to sort through projects. You can pin a project so that you see it at the top or in your pinned list. You can look at all of them. You can look at all of the ones owned by yourself, which means the ones you've created, the ones you're pretty much the owner of, and then shared with me, right? So the projects that have been shared with you. In this case, I am the administrator, so I can see all of the projects, even the hidden ones. So it doesn't change very much in regards to that. You can create a new project by simply clicking this file, creating a new project name, adding a picture, and then pretty much you get a blank slate in which you can add some stuff to that particular project. But for today, we're going to be working on the one that's the date. I'm going to go ahead and click through into that particular project, right? So we do have a couple of things here, right? So this is my project space. I've created this a couple days ago just for this AVA, pretty special in regards to who I've added to this, kind of collaborated with me on this particular project. The first and foremost thing is, who do I want to share this information with, right? With Fusion Team, you do have those security preferences to be able to, share who has access to what, who has visibility into what. In this case, I've added some people to this project, namely Brian, who is one of our engineers here, and Alex, who happens to be sitting next to me. And I've added them both as project editors, right? So let me highlight over this. If you need information on what anything does in here, you can highlight over it, similar to things like Inventor and AutoCAD, and it does give you a flyout of a description of what that actually means. So Brian can edit and manage files. Pretty much he has full access to this particular project. He can do whatever he wants. You can go ahead and invite people as either editors, 2 roles, right? Or viewers. Viewers are consumers of the file. Say, for example, you're going to go ahead and upload some drawings here for your job. People on the shop floor, right, to go ahead and visualize. They just need that as a consumer. They need to use it as reference to be able to build these particular assemblies, right? And in that case, you would give them viewing ability, right? They have ability to look at all of these files. They don't have the ability to go ahead and upload new versions of those files and things like that, or upload new files into the project itself, right? So it's pretty much just a consumer of the file. You pretty much just add their email address in here, and it sends them an invite via this. It comes to their Outbox or their Outlook inbox, and they can go ahead and accept to be a part of this particular project.
Interesting that you bring that up too, Nigel. Is oftentimes you're working with suppliers, right, and you want them to collaborate as well in the project,
right?
But most of the times you don't want them to get full access of your assembly or your parts. So just have them view it in the web browser and get all the information they need from there. Exactly,
and understand, right, that this project member invitation is project specific, right? So if I add someone to this project, say for example Alex, it has editor ability in this project, but not editor ability or viewability into any of the other projects in my Fusion team unless I explicitly set that up for him. So just know there is like a ton of security features in here to be able to make sure that the right people have the right access to the right files at the right time. Right. That's a lot of rights, no lefts in that, right? Huh? You get it? Oh, okay. Enough jokes for this morning. Anyways, like I mentioned, you can add project members as much as you want, but I think what's really most important here is the ability to be able to upload files and store them in here, right? That's pretty much what we're going to use this for. We're going to use this to upload files. We're going to share this with people either downstream, upstream, or even in manufacturing. It is as simple as clicking the upload button. You do have a couple of options here, right? You can upload files, you can upload folders, you can even upload assemblies, or you can even move things straight from Dropbox, right? So Autodesk has built this in a way where you can just, sync to your Dropbox, grab some stuff from your Dropbox and put it in here. What's really interesting is this assembly upload. So people who are using Inventor, right? If you go ahead and hit that assembly upload, say for example, you wanted to grab an assembly from your computer. I know I have one in this this folder. I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. And what happens is you get to select the parent file for this, right? And it understands, hey, based on this parent file, which is my V8 engine assembly, I have all of these files attached to it. Whereas if you were to do something like Dropbox and you want to go ahead and upload this V8 engine assembly file, what happens? You upload the assembly file, but it doesn't carry over any of the other files with it. So if you go to open it on the other end, and just by a show of hands, me and Alex are both going to raise our hands right now. How many times have you done that and then had like everything missing? I'm definitely raising my hand right now. So it does understand. You can also do a simple drag and drop, right? If you had your Windows Explorer open, you can carry some of these parts into here. I'm just going to carry one. And you can drag and drop files. It adds it to this queue. That went from 143 to 144. I'm not going to upload this because I already have, so I'm not going to worry about that too much, right? Let me go ahead and cancel this. The easiest way to do that, I'm just going to do this and refresh this. Perfect. Awesome. So this is in my browser. As you can see, this is in Google Chrome. Like I said, it works the same way in things like Internet Explorer or Firefox. There isn't even applications in both the Android Play Store and the Apple App Store. Is that what it's called? Yeah, sorry, I'm not too familiarized with the Apple suite of products. Anyways, yeah, it's available in all of those. What you do have in here is a version control, right? And so to go ahead and give people an understanding of what version control is versus things like revision control, right? Those are two things we hear very often. Version control, meaning every time an update to this gets put in here, you create a new version. Things like revision control are things where you have Rev A, you have Rev B, you have Rev C. When you hit certain milestones in the project, right? When traditionally you hear the word, I've released this file to manufacturing, then you have to go back and make a change. I've released this file to manufacturing again. Those are revisions. That's something that Fusion Team and BIM 360 do not have. So just understand that it is version control, not revision control. I get that question a lot, so I wanted to go ahead and address that as we're moving here, right? Looks like we have a couple of questions. I'm just going to go ahead and see some information there. It looks like we answered a couple of them already that came through just based on moving forward through this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open a particular file, and I'm going to go ahead and be able to share some of those version informations, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just jump into this break assembly folder, right? You can even add new folders. You can add new designs from Fusion if you really want to. You can kind of customize this however you want. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and open this break assembly folder. As you can see, it does have version number here at the beginning. For example, this one's at version 2, this one's at version 1. And you do have the ability on each file to do certain things, right? Obviously, this pencil would be to change the file name. This weird arrow is the share functionality, right? That's really important. So I'm going to go ahead and just click that real quick. And ignore that. That happened already. And I tried again. Essentially, you do have some share ability, right? The share link is on for the break assembly. Essentially, what happens is it creates a link that you can send to anyone via email to be able to look at this in a browser in a viewer-only format, where they can go ahead and rotate that file around, go ahead and do things like explode, sometimes measures, depending on what you're looking at. You do have the ability to allow people to download the file to their computer or give explicit access to not be able to do that. You can also require a password to access the link, right? If you want only certain people to have it, you can give them the password and none others. You do have the ability to have it send an email, or this is really cool, and this was added a couple of months ago, you can directly embed a viewer of your file onto your website via an iframe. So say this is something you as a company have developed, it's a part or an assembly that you've already sent to market, and your marketing team wants screenshots to go ahead and put on your website of that CAD model. So it's like, hey, here's a picture of our model. You can buy this and stuff like that. Well, they've taken it to the next level where you're able to include an iframe of that particular model into an embedded HTML-like website. So you have that full viewer, you have full spinability, is what I like to call it, of the file, and it's super, super awesome.
Yeah, one good thing too to note, Nigel, is that the link that you have here in front of you is always going to be pertaining to that part, right? So further down the line, if let's say you add a different version of the assembly or the component, that link is always going to be the same. So if your supplier or your other team members open the link, they're going to get the up-to-date version of
exactly. So you don't have to worry about getting a new link every time you change your model, right? That link remains the same and updated as you update the model inside Fusion Team. So let's just go ahead and you do have the ability to download the file, and then you have some options here to be able to upload a new version. If you have another version of this on your computer, you have the ability to copy this file, put it somewhere else, move it, literally put it somewhere else, or delete this particular file. Obviously, some of these objects are things only available to people who are project administrators or editors. Viewers don't have the ability to do some of this functionality. So I'm just going to go ahead and just click this. This is a Fusion file. Works the same way with Inventor files. Let me just go ahead and open this. And great. So essentially, this is our viewer, right? And this is pretty much what's going to be put in that iframe if you want to do that. Or if you share that link to somebody, they're going to see exactly the same thing that I'm seeing here, which is a 3D representation of the file. You've got your full view cube. Same thing as Inventor. You can orbit through here by using certain mouse gestures. Same thing with panning. You can use certain keyboard shortcuts to do all these things, right? If you do notice here, there are a couple of bubbles on the screen, right? So for example, I've got this bubble 1 and this bubble 2. What that is a part of the commenting feature in Fusion Team. Really important, right? If you want to do things like design reviews, you want to work with multiple vendors on a particular project, and you want to communicate without, sending long emails describing, hey, can you change the outside diameter on this circle next to the other pink thing? Sometimes that gets a little convoluted in terms of the text. This makes it really easy where you can just directly comment on the particular part or feature that you want someone to notice, right? And it keeps all of this comment history throughout all of the versions. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on one of these comments. And let's go ahead and look at that, right? It's a comment from Brian. It tells you who it is, when they made this comment, at what time, and then it gives you his actual comment. For example, Brian says, we need to adjust the size of this diameter. And I can even reply to that directly in here, right? So what size do we need? And I can go ahead and reply to that, right? So that automatically gets put in this chat, and Brian's going to be notified on his end that, hey, someone responded to my comment. You can even show that in the feed, right? And so there is a comments feed up here if you go ahead and click this, and it shows that, hey, this is a comment string, and I'm replying to Brian, and he'll get notified of that as well. Really interesting thing, right, is there are multiple in here. So if I click this second comment, it automatically jumps to whatever he redlined or highlighted. And I guess Brian really likes the bold red color. That's awesome. You can pretty much do whatever you want in here, right? And so you do have the option to, go ahead and draw in here. You can go ahead and highlight certain parts if you'd like to, and things like that. So I guess Brian really likes the bold red color. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of that comment, but I'm going to show you that you do have the ability to go ahead and mess around with new comments, with camera interactions, and things like that. The really important thing is when you do create a comment, it takes a snapshot of where your particular file is at that particular time. Say, for example, I wanted to look at this duct here, right, for this cooling. And, we do have some interference with the body for this particular duct. If I made the comment in this view, and it's just back there, you really can't tell. But what it does is it will hold your camera to this particular view as you go over it. So I'm just going to go ahead, simple markup, do a line tool. I'm going to pick, I don't like the bold red color. I'm going to go with yellow. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw an arrow to this duct. And I can even add some text over here saying interference, check measurements, right? Something along those lines. Whatever you really want to put in here, you can, right? You do have the ability to put callouts. You can do full-blown area selections, whether or not that's clouds. You can freeform draw things, or you can even change the color and the line styles, right? So you can do line weights, quote unquote. You do have the ability to undo things, right? If you made a particular comment that you want to get rid of, you don't necessarily have to junk the whole thing. You can just go back one step at a time. I'm gonna go ahead and save this down. And as you can see here in the comments view, it does add that one, and it does show me the particular camera angle that it was at when I made this comment, right? So if I jump back to Brian's, it'll jump to this camera angle. Let's jump back to the one I just made here. And as you can see, the camera angle changes to show, hey, there's interference here. Let's go ahead and start editing some of this information. Great. Let's go ahead and X out of this. You do have the ability, right, to go ahead and see the differences in the versions as well. So people who have used Vault can kind of relate to some of this overview, which I'm going to show next. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and click the overview. And you know what? It's got information on what kind of file this is. It's a CAD file. The shared link is on. It was last updated by Alex. It is on version 2, and it does have some related data, right? And there are a couple of simulations attached to this, right? So it understands that, hey, there are some link simulations. I can go ahead and look at those if I really wanted to. Same thing for inventor files, right? For example, you've got an inventor part. There will be a field down here that says used in, and you're going to be able to figure out, hey, what assembly is this being used in? Or, you know, this assembly's got a bunch of children. What are those? It'll be able to find a lot of that information for you. Super powerful in that regard, and super awesome. You can go ahead and change that down to version 1, and it also changes, you know, based on what information you have. Maybe you didn't have all 3 of those simulations in version 1. Obviously, they wouldn't show here if that was the case. So let's just go ahead and jump back into that break assembly folder. You can navigate through the top there to wherever you really want to go. And we're back here in the project hub. What I'm going to go ahead and show you is there is this activity field here on the right-hand side. You can go ahead and click that, and it does show what the last actions have been in this particular project, right? The one I showed you at the beginning was in the entire hub. This one's for the entire project, right? So I can show, hey, I uploaded this engine 47 minutes ago. That's an inventor file. We can go ahead and look at that next. If you wanted to upload a new version of any files, like I mentioned, it is here, upload new version. Essentially, you find the file on your computer with the same name, upload it, and it becomes version 2 immediately. Super powerful in that regard. And there's one thing I forgot to show, Alex, which is the live review.
All right.
So let's go ahead and just do that. Actually, I want to use a different example for that. I think it'll be really powerful if I use this particular engine right here. So here's an inventor assembly. It's got probably hundreds of parts, I'd say. I think it's 150 parts or so. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and jump into the live review session. So this is kind of a way to go about your design reviews without actually being in the same place. Traditionally, design review, let's call a meeting. Let's all meet in the conference room, 3 o'clock this afternoon. Everyone better make it. Sometimes that's impossible, right? You've got people who are designers in other locations, people who might be on vacation. Sometimes you've got downstream vendors that help you with some of these files that you need to be on that design review with you, but they're not necessarily in your location. Something like a live review is going to be very powerful in that aspect, right? So if you do click on this arrow, which is the share arrow, you can jump straight into what's called a live review. What that does is it opens another browser tab, and it says, hey, what's your name? I'm going to say myself because I am me. And what it's doing is it's putting a viewer of the file similar to what we just had in here, and I can go ahead and share this live link to others, right? So I'm going to go ahead and Control-C this, and I'm going to go ahead and give this to Alex. What I'm going to do is I will, what's the easiest way for me to get this to you? I'm going to go ahead and use the chat. Actually, this is going to be really cool. I'm going to do this instead. I'm going to put this in the chat so anyone can come in. Boom. So that's in the entire chat. Feel free to join. I'm going to give everyone maybe a minute or two to join this live review session so you guys can get a taste of what it looks like to be in here. Like I said, if anyone grabs the mouse and starts rotating this, everyone will see where it's moving, right? So please not all do it at once. But you do have the ability to move this around. You can do cool things like explodes. And I can control that. Anyone else on the other side can control that as well. So right now, I'm not going to touch my mouse. And someone on the line who's not me is actually—
looks like Henrik.
Yeah, it looks like Heinrich is doing it. going into editing this model. Obviously, we're not in the same location because the only one in this room is Alex. And you can do things like explodes. This is actually really cool. I never actually thought about doing this. You can do full-blown explodes of the model. You can do live review sessions, and you can even chat, right? So there's an option here to chat. It says there's, 7 participants. There's a message in here already. Let's see who put something in here. I need to go down. It looks like just a bunch of people are in here. It looks like Steve said this is very cool. Obviously, there's a ton of people in here, so this might be a problem in regards to people joining and me not being able to type anything. Essentially, you do have the ability to chat in here with anybody you want to. To be able to see who's actually editing it, if you look here on the right-hand side, the person who's got the red dot at the top left corner of their name is the person who has the ability to move any of this stuff around. So what I'll do is I'll keep this open for anybody to be able to edit it during the webcast. If you guys want to play around with it a little bit, you are more than welcome to. I'll leave this open for a while. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back into my presentation. Awesome. So really powerful tool. It looks like people are having a little bit of fun with that, messing around with that particular file. Like I mentioned, that's simply a view session. You're actually not editing the file on this end, and you can't edit the file on this end through that live review session. So I have no worries of anyone editing my file from there. So Alex, if anyone jumps in there, does some chat stuff, feel free to reply to those people. Jump back out of that. Awesome. So you do have the ability to look at a couple of other things, right? Up here, you have the ability to look at things like the data, the calendar. If you want to add particular project milestones or particular dates you want to be able to hit, go ahead and do that. You do have the ability to have, just general discussions about this particular project. Let's do this. KETIV, help. October 5th. Cool. Who do we assign this to? All right, I'm going to go ahead and post this. Alex is going to get notified that there is a particular discussion here, and Alex can go ahead and reply if he really wants to. Alex is a little busy right now talking to some of the people on the live review session that's still open. But anyone who has ability to look in this project, even consumers of the file, can do this. So, sometimes you lose things like emails. Sometimes that's not completely visible throughout the entire project. But this way, all of the communication is transparent. All of the comments are not lost, and things like that all exist, right? So that's really cool. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of other things. While we're doing that, we can go ahead and take a look at some questions while I'm jumping back into this. Looks like Caleb just put a question in there. Can you look at specific representations? So for those of you who don't know what that is, right, that's an inventor. You do have your design representations, right, where you can turn, say, for example, content center parts off. You can have a different view. Maybe your part moves and you want it to be in a closed state versus an open state. In here, you cannot edit the design representation. That's not in here, seeing as you don't have a full-blown inventor built into the particular tool, right? It does grab everything from that master view rep and puts it in here as that location. I get this question a lot as well in regards to the explode functionality. Can you choose how it explodes? Is it going to explode as to what my presentation file does? In this case, it isn't, right? It's a general explode out or explode in a certain direction. It's based on how you built the model. Is how it's going to explode. Generally, it does it axially. If you want to look at what it's going to do to your particular model, feel free to let me know, and I can test it with that one as well. Like I mentioned, there is a file reader in here for hundreds, hundreds at least of different files, right? So, for example, we've got an Excel spreadsheet, a PDF, PowerPoint presentation, documents. Let's go ahead and just look real quick at this Excel spreadsheet. It's going to open this up, and something similar to what we've got on Google Docs, right? It opens a similar thing. You cannot edit via this, but it does have a reader for that as well, right? So one really important thing that I've heard a lot lately is people want to be able to mark up their drawings. And that's totally reasonable. I want to mark up my drawings as well, right? I want to be able to add certain functionality. I want to be able to, or not certain functionality, add certain comments based on things like dimensioning, maybe the title block's wrong and things like that. You can surely do that with files like IDWs and DWGs. The most common file type in regards to drawings now, that's general, is your AutoCAD DWG file. But as of recently, not recently, I guess, as of the last 20 years or so, PDFs have become super prominent in that space. So this can read PDFs, but just be aware, you cannot add comments direct to the model, right? That markup tool to PDFs. That's just something that that they're aware of on the Fusion team side of thing. It's something that they're looking into because a lot of people do have their drawings in this particular format, not necessarily a DWG or the native format. But it is something they're looking into. I've talked to a lot of people on the team over there. It is something very high on their list. It is probably the highest thing on most people's wants list for Fusion team. Just be aware, it's something they're looking into. You can still comment generally on the whole thing. Say, section A should be 1 to whatever 4. And you can still do things like this, but you can't, circle it and say change this to 1 to 4 on PDF files specifically. Let's go ahead and jump back into there. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of security features in regards to Fusion Team. Let me see how we're doing on time. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes here going over some of the security in Fusion Team. I know that's really important. Like I mentioned earlier, all of this stuff is in the cloud, quote unquote, the cloud. And that is very scary to some people. In this case, it's as secure as it could be. It's built on Amazon Web Servers, the same place where pretty much everyone stores everything. So if you have any questions in regards to the security functionality, is my IP data secure and things like that, it is as secure as everything that Autodesk has that's kind of stored in the Amazon Web Server. Everyone else uses Amazon Web Servers as well. It is the most common place to store data. A lot of large corporations use it as well. So definitely that's not something to fear about. But what I'm going to do is, since I'm an administrator on this hub, I can go ahead and look into particular administration settings. I'm going to go ahead and jump into administration right now. That's my picture. Anyways, I can go ahead and edit any of the hub names from here. I can edit project contributor access. I can allow people to have certain roles, right? So like you saw earlier, there is that editor access, there's project contributor access, there's viewer access, and things like that. I can edit that, and then I can control how people add others to my hub via the team member invite mode. So what I can do is I can set it so only administrators can add people. I can set it so anyone can add anyone. I can set it so that I have to, as an administrator, approve anyone who gets added, and things like that. You can edit all of those in there. Members and roles, right? So this is everyone in the entire hub. For example, you can go through here and you can, go ahead and activate, deactivate, change people's settings, right? For example, I'm going to go ahead and just jump into who's the coolest person here? Brian. I'm going to go ahead and make Brian a project contributor, right? And so that'll edit. Brian will become a project contributor. He has different functionality based on that. I can also deactivate Brian. And I'm sure Brian's watching this and he's kind of sad right now. But you can just immediately deactivate people from access to the hub. Say, for example, you're not working with a vendor anymore. Say, for example, somebody's not on your team anymore. You can go ahead and deactivate those people simply via a click of here. They don't have access to logging into here anymore and things like that. You can look at pending invitations, send invitations, or even invite more people from in here. All right. The next tab is projects. And what this does is it adds all of the projects you have in your hub, and it shows you what type of project they are, right? So which project were we working on? The one that's this date, right? Yep. Awesome. So there are 3 types of projects. There's closed, open, and secret. So open is self-explanatory. Anyone can jump into that project. Anyone can view that particular project. And then go in there and start editing things if they want to, if they have that edit functionality. But they can see it exists. Closed, people can see it exists, but they cannot enter that project unless they have, explicit invitation to do so. Lastly, secret is obviously you can't see it unless you're a part of it. Right. So if you want to keep a secret from somebody, use Fusion Team Project, I guess. You can also archive these projects. Say you're done with them, you can archive them. They go into a different state. You still have full access to everything. It's just in a different location. You can manage roles of people in here, or you can even transfer this project to a different hub if you really want to. Say, for example, you got multiple hubs for, say, for example, you got a team in Houston, you got a team in California. Actually, the Houston team is going to take over this project. Let me send this over there. Awesome. And subscriptions, right? So Fusion Team is on a subscription basis. You do utilize a seat for people who are team members, not project contributors, and as well as team administrators. So team members and team admins have a license taken up. People who are just project contributors don't take up a license until February 1st of 2018. So definitely keep in mind that that will change in 2018. Sorry. If you want information on how this actual subscriptions work and how all that gets taken care of, let me know, and I can go over that with you directly. It is kind of a more difficult process. There is like a very easy to read spreadsheet, which kind of shows a matrix of how the actual licensing works for something like this. It is attached to a particular contract number, and it does show me how many seats I have. Looks like we've got a couple of questions, Alex. Let's go ahead and look at this one right here.
Yeah, so this one says, how can I see my 500 gigabytes of storage?
So you have 500 gigabytes of storage per seat you have. So I don't think it explicitly shows it in here how much you have. You just have 500 times whatever this total is. So in this case, I've got a lot of storage. Yeah, so say you have 3 people in here, you've got 1.5 terabytes of storage. That's pretty significant. I've actually never seen even a vault that size. Mm-hmm. I've seen vaults almost a terabyte. I haven't seen any that big. So just understand that that is the administration part of the hub. You do have access to be able to see all of that stuff. I'm going to jump back into the Fusion Team. Excuse me. And like I mentioned, you do have the ability to look at all of this stuff via mobile. So for those people who are maybe in the field, need to go ahead and access a particular file. I see that being really big in the BIM industry. Hey, I need to look at this drawing and I'm out in the field at the construction site to see how this piping goes, for my particular PNID. You can go ahead and do that with Fusion Team or BIM 360 Team. I think in that case, it would be BIM 360 Team. Super powerful. You don't need a CAD seat. So it is people, it is a lot of times used for people who don't necessarily need to have that CAD access to be able to build things. So looks like here Chris said he's got 1.5 terabytes of vault. That is a large backup, sir. That is a lot of data. That's probably if I saw it, it's probably the biggest one I would have seen. I haven't seen anything that big, actually, as I'm working on stuff. Anyways, with that, we can go ahead and jump into some more questions. I'm going to go ahead and just jump back into the PowerPoint here real quick. And so, in summary, we do have better collaboration with Fusion Team. It is CAD aware, like I mentioned. It understands that parent-child relationship between files. It understands, like I showed you, that those simulations are attached to that brake rotor. And, you can do design reviews simply either by, adding comments and markups to your particular files, or even like what we did is the live review session. Mm-hmm. Really cool thing about live review that I didn't mention is that doesn't take up a license. So I could have had like 50 people in there, and it wouldn't have consumed any licenses for my 400, which is a huge deal. It's just a big deal. So with that, we're going to go ahead and just jump into some questions and answers. Excuse me. And we're just going to go ahead and take a look at some other things. So a question from Steve. Once the project's in Fusion Team, how do you edit it? Like I mentioned, you just upload that new version after you've edited it in your CAD system. Makes sense. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. In regards to showing an iframe example, I did have a customer who had an iframe example. They actually took it down to use real life photography of what the product looked like in real life. So I don't have that. What I can do, Heinrich, and for anyone else who wants to see that, I can go ahead and embed this maybe on our website or into some other landing page. See if that works with our IT guys. I know I'm seeing if my IT guy's messaging me right now saying that's not possible. But I'm going to go ahead and try to create that iframe example, and I'll go ahead and send that to you via email. All right. Question: is this similar to something like SharePoint? We have external parties that we want to see some of our data in our vault. So it is similar to SharePoint in regards to the fact that it is a cloud storage solution. Unlike SharePoint, you do have full things like full viewers. You have the ability to mark up files, explode files, measure particular files. In regards to seeing particular data in Vault, that is something that has been voiced to Autodesk to be able to do something like a folder sync from Vault into the cloud. Can't talk too much about anything about that, but it is something on the radar. They know it exists, or they know it is a thing that people want to exist. That's all I can say about that. Marcel, I can follow up with you afterwards if you need clarification on any of that stuff as well. Looks like here we got a question. We're using Inventor. Is the project file also copied when assembly is downloaded? So that's a great question. Let me go ahead and show you what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of PowerPoint real quick here. And say, for example, I want this Inventor assembly. You can go ahead and click this download of the file. It'll start downloading a zipped version of that entire assembly because I uploaded it as a whole. This is actually, I'm going to go ahead and cancel this because I've already done this. Cancel. And I'm going to go ahead and jump into that folder. So I extracted the folder already. This is what I get. I get all of the files, but I don't get the project file for that particular assembly. So it's not like a pack and go where you get all of that information if you choose to have that project file on there. Things like content center files as well. But it did grab the entire assembly, and it does understand that it is built in one level now, right? So for example, say for example you have your parts in a different folder than your top level assembly. Before you load it in, once you load it in, it puts it all at one level. Hopefully that makes sense. If you need any clarification on that, let me know. But it is all at one level now, top level assembly, all of the parts associated to it. And you can even open the assembly up. I actually opened it in Inventor. And it's just using the project file that I have active in my Inventor project. Hopefully that answers your question. Looks like we got a question here from Steve. What is the difference between Fusion Team and Fusion 360? I can add this there as well, Fusion Lifecycle being a different thing too. There are half a dozen Fusion products, and there's maybe a dozen BIM products. But I think Alex can go ahead and take this question a little bit better than I can, specifically what the difference is between Team and 360.
Yeah, so essentially Fusion 360 is the integrated CAD CAM software, right? Whereas Fusion Team is the collaboration tool, the web browser that lets you collaborate with your team members.
Exactly. And so Fusion 360 has its own system in which it does your data management and collaboration, right? And it looks almost identical to this. I can actually jump to that from here. Let me just jump into my 360 drive real quick. And so Fusion 360 is the CAD tool. Fusion Team is a collaboration tool that is also integrated with regular Fusion 360. So hopefully that answers that question. I can show you that once this all loads here, it takes a while for load my 360 drive, that you can grab stuff from your Fusion setup or your Fusion data management and move that into a move that into a Fusion Team project. Yeah. I know that's a mouthful sometimes, but hopefully that kind of answered that question. This thing can take a while. My 360 drive is huge. Maybe this wasn't the right thing to do, but essentially, it looks like some people are still in here messing with this particular file. That's awesome. Like I mentioned, this is in the chat. If you want to jump in here, I'm going to leave this open for a couple hours. So anyone can go ahead and just edit whatever they want in here. if you want to edit, you know, some stuff. That's awesome. Hello, Jonathan, Mr. Tony Stark himself. That's pretty awesome that you're there. Anyways, with that, I'm going to give everyone another 30 more seconds or so to go ahead and ask any last-minute questions that they do have. We'll see if my A360 drive goes ahead and loads. But looks like we don't have anything super important in regards to questions. I do have some follow-ups that I know is in here, so if I didn't answer your question, it is something I'll definitely take offline. And next week, let's talk about next week's AVA, Alex. So next week's AVA is, excuse me, all about the workflow in the product design and manufacturing collection. So we definitely want to be able to use all of the tools available to us, things like the integrated simulation, things like the integrated CAM. I know Alex is a big CAM guy.
Yeah,
Alex loves CAM, even you know, cylindrical CAMs as well.
Oh, man.
So anyways, next week's all about that workflow, right? So to jump from inventor to be able to, you know, use the integrated simulation tools, build your product, use the integrated simulation tools to go ahead and, you know, optimize your design. So things like Nastran and CAD to do things like drop tests, to figure out, hey, is my design actually strong enough? Or maybe it's too strong and I can look a little bit, quote unquote, sexier by taking some weight off of this thing. And then, you know, taking that down into the integrated CAM workspace, which is Autodesk HSM, high-speed machining, and to be able to export that all in a simple workflow while, you know, using things like Vault as well, all included in the product design and manufacturing collection. So if you're confused as to where do I use this? At what stage of my process do I use this? Where is this useful? A lot of those questions are going to get answered next week by Jorge Fernandez, who is a AE who's been on a ton of these AVAs. So it looks like my A360 drive is just so full of stuff that it doesn't want to open for me. I actually have this thing. I've actually kind of hit the limit of stuff. I go back to my Fusion team. But anyways, you can move stuff from Fusion 360 to Fusion team if you really want to. So with that, I think that's all of the questions that we have for this week. Definitely, everyone, thank you for being a part of Autodesk Virtual Academy, and we hope to see you next week. With that, I don't have any clever jokes at the end of this.
Yep, no more jokes.
So yeah, I guess that's just how the cookie crumbles.
That was a weird finish.